Wait a minute. Let's break this down for a second. He has zeal for the house of God. He has an unquenchable passion for the house of God. Whoa. He said, my house will be called a house of prayer. But we've turned it into a den of. What is he actually saying when he says he wants it to be a house of prayer? What is he looking for? See, the Old Testament was like, hey, don't do this, don't do that. And that's how I'm with my kids a lot of times, right? You know, I'm like, okay, that's an electrical outlet. Knives don't go there. Don't do that. What am I saying? I'm just trying to get them to stay alive. Literally, I think 99% of my job as a dad is keeping my kids alive. That's literally the other things, whatever. And that's what the Old Testament is. It's like, you want to stay alive, stop. Don't do that, all right? But he's now saying, my house, I want it to be called a house of prayer. What's he actually looking for when he says that? A relationship, intimacy. You know, have you ever noticed that whenever you're in right relationship with God, that if you're actually, you know, doing what he's supposed to be doing, have you ever noticed that sin just doesn't happen? It's crazy. It's absolutely insane. You ever notice whenever you're focused on your sin and not doing it, like, don't think about an elephant right now. There you go. It doesn't work. The law is good, but it still doesn't work. Jesus knew relationships. He said, my house will be called a house of prayer. Well, guess what? There's all these things that compete for our relationship. You know, every time I sinned, you know what the end result of my sin was? Every single time I sinned, you know what happened? I stopped praying. Every single time. It's been that way since the beginning. Adam sinned. What did he do? Hid. We sinned. What do? Hide. Nothing's changed. And what's he saying? What is he after? What is he looking for? He's like, my house will be called a house of prayer. I want relationship with you. I think that's why God loved David so much, because David ran to him when he sinned, you know, except for the one big one. He ran to him. He was just like, hey, not everybody's perfect. But he did. He ran to him. He was quick to repent. That's awesome. And when we trust him and when we love him, when we actually believe that he's good, check this out. So if he has zeal for the house of God, he has an unquenchable passion for you. And when Jesus comes in with a whip, guess what? That whip is not for you. That whip is for the things that are competing against him and stealing away what you were intended to have. And we have our little ATM table set up, and we'll put heroin up there, we'll put lust up there, and we'll put, you know, we say that those are the big things. No, those are the small things, actually. Let me get to the big things. We'll put bitterness up there, 1,000 times worse than heroin. And we'll put pride up there, 1,000,000,000 times worse than heroin. The devil's sin, actually. Think about that. We'll put it up there and act like it's not that big of a deal. And Jesus will come in with a whip. The whip's not for you. You allow him to come in, and he says, you are stealing my relationship with the one that I have an unquenchable passion for. Get out. And he's not having it. And sometimes when Jesus cleans something, he makes a mess. He's not afraid to fling crap everywhere. Let me tell you something. If a person is in a house of, grows up in a house of Islam, and they give their life to Jesus, you ever heard, you talk about you give your life to Jesus because you think it's going to make your life better, right? Well, that's kind of like a self-serving reason to give your life to Jesus. You're kind of like, I need to give my life to Jesus because it's going to make my life better. You know, when somebody grows up in a house of Islam and then they give their life to Jesus, let me tell you something. The next day is not better. Their dad disowns them, their mom disowns them, their family disowns them, and everybody disowns them. They don't have a family anymore because they gave their life to Jesus Christ. It actually didn't make their life better, but is he still worth it? When someone in China gives their life to Jesus and they're trying to get closer to God, and we just go back here and read a Bible, or we've got it on our phone. Oh, that's amazing. Somebody in China has Christian propaganda in their home, and the authorities are coming, and they're going to take everything that they own for having this Christian propaganda in their home. Their life didn't necessarily just get better the day after that they gave their life to Jesus, but was it worth it? Yes. He's either true or he's not true. His love for you is either real or it's not real. And I'm telling you what, he's worth it. He laid down our life for us. He laid down his life for us. And he's calling us to lay down our life for him. And there's these things that will compete and get in the way and steal our relationship from him. Sometimes, let me tell you, you talk about Jesus getting upset and getting angry. You ever heard about, people say, he loves the sinner, but he hates the sin. Dude, that phrase doesn't even come close. That phrase doesn't even come close. He has an unquenchable passion for the sinner. All right? And he is ticked off about the things that will steal the relationship that they could have together. He is not having it. And when we allow him to come into our life and we catch a vision of how he sees things, I'm telling you what, when he starts to clean house, we'll pick up the whip with him. When we get a vision of it, we'll say, I see what you're doing. Let me join you. And we'll say, heroin, get out. Lust, get out. Bitterness, you have no place here. Pride, get out. Jesus, let me just join in this cleaning session with you. Bad things sometimes aren't all that bad. Book of James says, rejoice when trials happen. That's the dumbest verse I've ever heard in the entire Bible. That's the absolute most insane, dumbest thing I've ever heard. He says, rejoice whenever trials. Has anybody in here ever done that? Anybody? Okay, just make sure we're here with normal people. And it says to do that, rejoice in trials. And it says, why? Because it builds you up. But people run to the gym to go put their body through hell because they know that it's a good outcome, that it's good for them. And God here in the Bible is saying the exact same thing. He's saying, when trials come your way, you're looking at it like this is big thing. You've given your life to Jesus to avoid trials. He's like, just don't think that way. When they come, I'm going to make you better because of this. You think everybody else, the trial is going to tear them down. Everybody else, the trial is going to make their life worse. He said, I'm actually going to use this to make you better. Check this out. Are you ready? So my wife, we're pregnant. Not necessarily me, but her mostly. And the doctor comes to us and he says, hey, listen, we've seen something that's really bad. Your baby, it's our first baby. We've seen something really bad, and we just want to get you ready for it. Okay? She's not gonna. Good chance she's not gonna be. Okay. Here's some literature, here's some things, here's some websites, you just get you guys ready for it. So I did not take that news very well. I did not do very good with this information. I had never met this person, this unborn person. And somehow I loved her more than anybody in the world. It was insane. And I love her the exact same amount now. But when she was... I loved her. It was crazy. I can't explain it. I thought I knew what love was before kids, but it opened up this part of my soul I didn't know that it existed, okay? And I loved her. And I wept. We use top shelf words for everything in America. We say something was hilarious when actually it was just funny. It wasn't really hilarious. And so when I say wept, you think, oh, he cried. No, I want to use a top shelf word here. I made noises I didn't know that I could make. I cried, I wept until my head was literally physically hurting. I was sick. Everything hurt. Everything hurt. My hands hurt, my legs hurt, my body was hurting. We were on tour with KJ52 at the time, and the drummer for KJ was Jamie Davis, and he used to play drums for 7 Day Slumber as well. And he came back to the bus, and I was weeping, and I was crying, and I was yelling, and I was just making noises, and he just put his arm around me and just held me back there. Well, I just cried. Let me tell you, I love football, I love basketball, I love hockey, I love soccer even, I mean, I love, I love sports, I love movies, and I love TV shows, and I'm borderline addicted to those things in an unhealthy way, and I have to be careful and have to watch it. Can I tell you the next day after this news, what I did? I prayed. I didn't care about what was on the TV, what movie was being shown, who was playing. I prayed. I had work to do, and I got that work out of the way so I could pray. I had people to talk to, and I got those conversations out of the way so I could pray. I woke up, I prayed. I had breakfast, I prayed. I had lunch, I prayed. I went to work, and then after I prayed. And got into the bed and read about God and spent time with God, and I prayed. 2 months goes by, or however long it was, I don't even remember. And we go to the doctor, and they're like, hey, everything looks fine. We don't know what that was. Everything looks fine. And I'm like, okay. All right. And I remember my wife was like, when she is born, you better tell me if she's okay. I have a really bad memory, short term, long term, any term really. And so my daughter is born, and I'm like, it's so unfair but awesome that I got to hold all of my kids first. She went through 9 months of all that she went through, and then I get to hold them first. It's unfair, but it's really awesome at the same time. And I'm just like hanging out. I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying it's awesome. Okay, and I'm holding her, and I'm like, oh, this is great. She's, and I'm talking to her, whatever, and she's just like wanting me to. She just wants to know one thing. She's like, is she okay? And I'm like, oh yeah, she's great. She's great. And you could go back to that time when I'm weeping and I'm crying and I'm seeking God, and I'm telling you what, when that comes to your life, you don't really care what denomination you're part of. You don't care what your pastor is preaching. You will look for healing in the Bible because you need it. You don't really care. I mean, seriously, whenever you are seeking out intimacy with God, you literally stop caring what anybody says about him, and you just want to go to him. You're like, I don't want to go to you for him. I want to go to him for him.